Which event from history will always be funny? Story 1. Ancient Korea had special recording officials, whose job was to record everything. They were considered separate from the government, so the emperor of the time wasn't allowed to give them orders or tell them not to record something. Of course, some emperors would try anyway. On one occasion, King Taejong, 15th century, fell off his horse while hunting. The recorder nearby wrote it down. The emperor insisted that it be removed from the record, and even tried to have the report destroyed. This led to some nonsense as the emperor kept destroying their work, but the recorders kept copying it and hiding it in increasingly obscure places. And of course, recorded the whole thing as it happened. A few hundred years later, and the only thing that emperor is famous for is trying to hide the fact he fell off his horse. Reply. I picture some dude writing something like, at 11:35 a.m. on Sunday, the 9th of September, the emperor fell off his horse. 11:37 Emperor says, don't write that down. 11:39 Emperor tries to take book from me. 11:43 Emperor fell in mud chasing me telling, don't write that. 11:50 Lunch is being set as the emperor cleans up. He is upset today. Story 2. During the Napoleonic Wars, a French ship sank off the coast of Hartlepool, England. The only survivor was the captain's pet monkey, which he always dressed in a French military uniform. The locals freaked out because the law was that any French military found on British soil must be executed as a spy. So they ordered the standard punishment spies. Death by hanging. Except instead of dying, the monkey just kept climbing up the rope. Because it was a monkey. Hartlepool has since embraced their failure at executing a tiny primate for military espionage. Their local football team is nicknamed the Monkey Hangers. Reply. Oh boy. Talk about a football team name that wouldn't fly in the US. Reply 2. Different sport, but there's an American football team in Stirling, Scotland named the Klansmen. They get a lot of messages from outraged Americans saying the name is inappropriate. Of course, the team is named after Scottish clans and has nothing to do with the KKK. Story 3. In 1866, when going to war, Liechtenstein's army of 80 men came back with 81 men after making a friend from the enemy side. Story 4. In 1945, the Americans were pushing through Germany. General Eisenhower sent General Patton a message, instructing him not to take the city of Trier because it would require 4 divisions to seize the city. Patton sent a message back saying, have taken Trier with 2 divisions. What do you want me to do? Give it back. Reply. Gigachad moment. Story 5. When Persian king Xerxes punished the sea for ruining his bridge. He tried to build a bridge across the Dardanelles to get to Greece faster, but storm destroyed the bridge. Infuriated with the sea, Xerxes ordered his soldiers to punish it by whipping it with chains 300 times and poking it with red-hot irons. Handcuffs were also tossed into the water to symbolize the sea's submission to his authority. Reply. This is hilarious in modern context, but at the time Xerxes was viewed by his people as a semi-deity. And if you look at his actions in that context, it's more like a big PR stunt. If you're a god, you can't sit back and let another god get away with busting up your bridge without some payback. Story 6. The con man who sold the Eiffel Tower twice and got away with it. Reply. The funniest thing is not only he sold it, he got a bribe out of it. Reply 2. In England, outside Bristol Zoo is the car park, with spaces for 150 cars and 8 coaches. It has been manned 6 days a week for 23 years by the same charming and very polite car park attendant with the ticket machine. The charges are £1 per car and £5 per coach. On Monday the 1st of June 2009, he did not turn up for work. Bristol Zoo management phoned Bristol City Council to ask them to send a replacement parking attendant. The council said, that car park is your responsibility. The zoo said, the attendant was employed by the city council. Wasn't he? The council said, what attendant? Gone missing from his home is a man who has been taking daily car park fees amounting to about £400 per day for the last 23 years. Total sum £2.9 million. I remember this guy from the 90s. Story 7. In 1982, cartoonist Gary Larson drew a cartoon of a caveman giving a classroom lecture, pointing to the spikes of a Stegosaurus dinosaur tail and calling that the Thagomizer, after the late Thag Simmons. That particular arrangement of tail spikes had no name at the time, so scientists who were fans of Larson unofficially named it the Thagomizer. Reply. In the same vein, Calvin and Hobbes artist Bill Watterson once wrote a comic strip where Calvin complains that the Big Bang isn't evocative enough and suggests the name horrendous space kablooey instead. Though not officially adopted, it has become a popular informal way to refer to the Big Bang among astronomists. Story 8. The Spanish chicken farmer Juan Pujol Garcia tried to become a spy for the MI5, but they rejected him. He then applied to become a spy for the Nazi SS, who accepted him. The SS gave him the order to start a spy network in London, but instead he set up shop in Lisbon. There, he started feeding the Nazi commanders a bunch of horseshit intel, based on publicly available newspapers and magazines. They were believable enough for the Nazis to accept it as truth, even though they were completely made up. Every once in a while, he would be confronted about bad intel. He'd blame it on one of his fictional subordinates, and told his commanders he had rectified the problem. In one situation, he told the Nazis that his subordinate had fallen ill, and later, died. A fake obituary was placed in the newspapers to back his story up. He even convinced the Nazis to pay a pension to the, again, fictional agent's widow. The MI5 became aware of his existence after they saw the Kriegsmarine waste considerable effort in hunting down a non-existing convoy, based on Garcia's, again, fake intel. They enrolled him into their ranks, and that's when his bullshittery started getting serious. He was given the nickname Garbo, in reference to the best actor in the world, Greta Garbo. Because the Nazis believed he was one of theirs, they even sent him an enigma to encode the messages he was sending them. It was promptly turned over to the codebreakers at Bletchley Park. The most important work was on Operation Fortitude. He helped convince Nazi high command that the invasion of Normandy was a diversion. Officers believed a larger army was due to land in Calais. For his efforts, he was awarded the Iron Cross, authorized by Hitler himself. Understandably, the medal was awarded via radio. He was then also given an MBE medal by the British King, making him one of the few people who received medals from both sides. He faked his death and fled to Venezuela after the war, where he then ran a bookshop. His secret identity was undiscovered until a journalist got interested in the story, and managed to track him down in 1984. He managed to finagle the real name from a former spy, and then found Garcia after literally calling every J. Garcia in the Barcelona phone book until he managed to get in contact with Garcia's nephew. Story 9. Potatoes were not very popular as a food in France. Like they were seen as fit only for animals. A pharmacist named Parmentier knew they were good food and wanted to popularize them among the working class. He got a 2-acre farm to grow potatoes and placed armed guards around it. People assumed armed guards meant something very valuable was growing there, so they began to steal the potatoes. That's how potatoes became popular in France's working class. Reply. Not only that, but the guards were instructed to accept any and all bribes and to let the people steal the taters. Story 10. During the Mexican-American War, there was one particular battle where both sides had cannons and gunpowder, but due to a logistical fuck-up only one cannonball between them. So they spent the entire battle firing the same cannonball back and forth at each other. Edited, wrong war. Edit 2. According to my source, who focused her history degree on the American Southwest, it was the Battle of Rio San Gabriel. Wikipedia is vague in their description. They mention that there was issues with the ammo for the cannons, but don't elaborate. My source is looking for the print sources she originally used. Story 11. President Jimmy Carter was attacked by a rabbit while paddling around in a rowboat. The president was minding his own business rowing around a small pond and fishing when a rabbit left the shore and swam deliberately towards the boat, apparently crazed. Carter splashed the rabbit with water, driving it away from the boat. According to Press Secretary Jody Powell, upon closer inspection, the animal turned out to be a rabbit. Not one of your cutesy, Easter bunny-type rabbits, but one of those big splay-footed things that we called swamp rabbits when I was growing up. The animal was clearly in distress, or perhaps berserk. The president confessed to having had limited experience with enraged rabbits. He was unable to reach a definite conclusion about its state of mind. What was obvious, however, was that this large, wet animal, making strange hissing noises and gnashing its teeth, was intent upon climbing into the presidential boat. Staff back on shore initially didn't believe the president's account, but a photographer managed to capture the moment. Carter's political enemies used the incident as fodder to show that he was weak and claimed that his response to the rabbit attack incited the Soviet Union to invade Afghanistan that same year. Story 12. In World War II, the Germans built a fake airfield, with wooden fake planes, as a decoy in Holland. When they'd finally finished it, the British dropped a wooden bomb on it. Story 13. After war was declared between Spain and the US, the cruiser Charleston received orders to head to Guam and capture the port. The Charleston arrived at Guam and found no Spanish ships in the area. They opened fire on the fort overlooking the harbor. But the dozen or so shells didn't have much effect on the thick walls. Then the crew of the Charleston noticed a small boat coming towards them from the harbor. They held fire and let it come alongside. The captain of the port climbed aboard and apologized to the crew of the Charleston, saying they had no artillery in port and couldn't return the ship's salute. The captain of the port was then notified that he was now a POW, which was quite the shock. See, no one had bothered to tell the Spanish garrison that there was a war. The island was surrendered without resistance. Stop. You're cool. Subscribe for more. Yo!